Good morning, traders, and welcome to Trader Structure and the Morning Jumpstart macro view, where we take a look at the overnight action in the US session and the European session, the key levels that we see for the day playing out, and where we'll be looking to take some action into some trades. So we're going to look at what happened. We'll kick it off with the Aussie market. So this is the longer-term 30-minute view. It's on the Australian 200 index. Now you can see that level held quite nicely, 74.78, and then like it has done a lot in the past, the last few sessions. The Aussie market's doing a lot of work out of hours, okay? It's getting ramped up out of hours. Whether the market has gone up, down, or sideways during the day session, we are ramping higher with the US. That's a lot of that's got to do with the end of the month and end of quarter window dressing. Funds like to see it higher, so their performance looks a bit better for the quarter, and that's getting ramped up, as we know. The US is getting ramped up as well, and you've got the European markets doing the same sort of thing. The DAX flew last night, went through a resistance zone and just took out all the stops and just continued to power higher. So that was a really good move in the European session, which helped. You can see this lift the index, the SPY and the ASX 200 up during the European trade. Started the US session, got sold off a bit, found support, and then ramped straight back up again. So today, we'll look at the ASX 200 5-minute chart here. I'm expecting more of a flush of those highs, 75.09. Previous highs, that was from the overnight session. Flush those and see if we can get a lower high. I'm very skeptical of jumping in long, in this kind of action up here. It needs to consolidate. I'd prefer to see it maybe pop up, have a bit of a pullback, consolidate at a higher level, hold that higher low, just to flush out some of these buyers before we start to ramp up again. So that's what I'd ideally like to see. Otherwise, we could sort of ramp up and we get a lower high to work some shorts into. But I'd be very, very nervous, or there'll be more scalpy mentality on the short side, considering how strong this market is. Look over to Asian markets. You've got this is the Hang Seng. We've got the 5-minute chart we'll look at here. You can see this is where it closed. I think the underlying index closed. So it was kind of a choppy session, holding quite nicely, holding some inside high lows here, which was really nice to trade off. You could look at that sort of action there. That's holding up beautifully. Got up through that level into the close, which is around 7 o'clock. I think the index closed, the underlying index, and then you can see that ramp up. So that market there it's probably going to gap up about a couple of 100 points, nearly 300 points. On the index, so it's going to be a tough gig to be buying into that on such a strong gap up. But if the trade's there, you've got to take it. Even if it gaps up, consolidates a bit, and starts to go, then you've got to jump in long. So at the moment, index is quite strong. You see this big flush up to that. I'll just get that zone there, 22,370. Big flush up there. We had a bit of a pullback to take out some of these longs. It's a key level 22,190. So that's what I'll be watching on the open, just to see whether we're going to fade from that level or whether we're going to, and I'd ideally like to see that flush of 22,135, then hold up. If we're going to fade, if we're not going to fade off that level, we're going to hold up. So a bit of a flush in the open and start to ramp back up, potentially back to 22,370 later on or even higher. Okay, so momentum's up at the moment. It's just whether or not the day market, once the market opens, what it wants to do. Okay, so in Japan, same sort of thing. The market was doing this. Coming into the close, it was around 4 o'clock. Yeah, around this time was the index closed, ramped up, but it held nicely above 28,345. Now, funny thing is, it's closed, just reopened, so the futures market's actually trading. This is not just the CFD pricing, futures market, and it's gapped down 200-300 points. Not sure why. I can't find any news, but I'll continue to see if there's anything that pops up, because that's not, you're not seeing any sort of reaction, a negative reaction like that, a couple of 100 points down on the index, on the CFD. You would expect it to be, showing something. If it's a fear-based thing, showing up in the currencies or showing up in the US dollar or something, but the currency's not really moving. So it's more of just a, localized, I'd say, to the Nikkei. But I'll keep looking for those news. But that gap down there, that's going to be a big flush. Anything above this level when the futures market's trading or when the index opens has been massively caught offside. So we'll just wait and see how that plays out. I don't expect that all those sort of levels were drawn up prior to this move down here. So it's really whether we come back up, retest this 28,345 and start to fade again. Okay, so it may be we have a bit of a grind up. We grind up here, dragging some longs and then sell off again. Okay, but that's or we just grind all the way back up to 28,525. So longs off higher lows, shorts off lower highs. Now the Dow, you can see that Dow powered up and it got stuck towards their session there. So just the start of their session, pretty much range bound. It was flushed up into 325, faded back down to 35,055 and straight back up into the close. So you can see that they're really wanting to keep this market higher. Okay, that sort of pushed down in here, V-shaped recovery straight back up. That can be done by algos. Very hard to be done by your retail because they're looking for more confirmation-based trading, whereas algos will just, okay, that's it, line in the sand, bang, up they go. And they've ramped it up into the close. Back up to that high, 35,325. So I would expect potentially tonight we're going to find this kind of level be broken, maybe consolidation around here, maybe into the European session. You pop up here, consolidate and ramp. But Europe's notoriously for, a kind of a move up in the DAX like we saw. They may see some profit taking tonight, but I wouldn't expect it to come flying back down again. I would expect more chop around those highs. Okay, so which might mean this is contained, and then the US, they're no qualms about ramping it again, so it could easily get ramped to 35,700. UK, so this UK market, so it's, this trend up here, broke that, didn't bother with it, straight back up again, held this 74.65 zone. You can see that held there, lifted again. We got up through 75.45, retested this area in here around 75.21 or 75.20, and then ramped up again. So for me, if you're going to try to trade, if you start to get this action, then I'm looking for that high low, sort of around that zone. I wouldn't mind a push back into that zone just to flush out a few of these longs, chop around there, and maybe see if we can lift again. Remember, I think it's 2 more sessions. I think it goes to 31, doesn't it? Yep. So tonight's session and then tomorrow night's session, then it's the end of the quarter. So it could be, this is the kind of the action you'd be looking for. See if you can ramp tonight, tomorrow night, and then that's the end of the quarter. They've locked in some handy bounce over the quarter. Germany, you can see this was the level we've been talking about for quite a while. We spoke about it yesterday, although I didn't record it yesterday because my computer blew up. Didn't blow up, but things just had a bit of a hissy fit. So you've got the markets powered up through this level. Just see where the actual index opened. Yeah, so the index around about here. So it was trading up around here, consolidated above that level at 14,565, and then lifted. Okay, so that was a good. You can see it's traded that level for a while. So shorts. Anyone that's lucky enough to short there, okay, fine. It's shorted again. So the bias was down here. It's holding. It kept holding, shorting up there again. So there's a bunch of stops above that zone. Okay, you got tested here. Potentially, I don't really think it's flushed some longer term stops, but the fact that we consolidated there and lifted up now, that's just traded right through those stop levels. So any sellers into the market with a stop above that level has to buy back into the market and press the market higher. So it's a good amount of fuel. The more stops, the more fuel that can drive it a certain way. Okay, and in this case, it's up. Okay, so they drove the market higher. We've got a little level in here at 14.75, which it fell away from those highs, tested again, held, and we lifted. So what I'd be looking for here, if we do get some profit taking, I mean, if this market lifts and goes straight through there, it's neither higher. You're looking for that higher later hold, but a lot of the times it could sort of flush through this kind of a pattern where it's down, up, retest, a bigger move down, and then just smash down. Okay, so that's what I'd be looking for. If it starts to break through 14.75, I'll be looking for a bit of a squeeze on some of these longs, or up here off a lower high. Below, basically, it needs to hold below this high. Okay, so that's what I'll be looking for. Below that high, get a lower high to work into to squeeze out. Otherwise, it's going to be more of the same kind of action, a bit of a grind high and do this kind of thing. Okay, so US tech, should have spoken about that before. Let's talk about Wall Street, but you've got the NASDAQ, again, ramped higher. So it was pretty much all about a move above 150.60 or 1,500, 15,060 above there, held there, retested into the zone, held up quite nicely. So here would have been a nice little long area, trading off that higher low. You got an ICT, which we call it inside continuation. So inside continuation is something like this. You've got that compression and it lifts. Okay, so basically off that higher low within this pullback, you're looking for a ramp up, and that's what it pretty much did. So this beautiful level, now it's ramped up in the 15,267, and I'll be surprised if it can't sort of fade off there. Potentially it's going to hold between these two levels, 15,060 and 267 tonight. It may flush up through that level. Now, if it flushes up and comes straight back down below, you get this kind of action, then just be wary that it's not going to be a bit of a short, long squeeze. All the longs built up. So it's been a powerful market, powerful move up. It hasn't really had any sort of decent correction. Anything that decent correction was thwarted. On any pullback, any major pullback was thwarted, and buyers kept supplying, hitting the offer, supplying liquidity on the bid just to stop that pullback. Okay, and it's been, like I said, ramped up. So That's what I'd be looking for if I'm looking for a short, but I need it to go flush up, come straight back down below the level and hold a key lower high. Otherwise, we could be looking for another couple of sessions of a grind higher, even above that level, consolidate into the end of the month. Currencies, now the US dollar took a bit of a hit, took a hit off the highs, and it was around the 8 o'clock mark, which is, I think, somewhere around here. Just get that up. 8 o'clock, 6 o'clock. So yeah, it's sort of that move down, that beaten down there. Now, the Aussie didn't react too much. It was kind of reluctant to go up with the falling US dollar. So normally if you get a pair, US dollar currency or any pair, if one's getting sold off quite hard, especially if it's a base pair, say Aussie US, it's US dollar getting sold quite hard, Aussie dollar should find some buying, but it didn't. It was kind of getting capped. So the move down in the US dollar wasn't matched with a move up in the Aussie US pair. Okay, it was kind of getting held down. Okay, thing is, it did do a big flush. That was at the start of the share market, so around there, 11:30, 12:30 it opened, and then straight back up again. So it's more linked to the performance of the share market at the moment, as opposed to the US dollar. So if our market ramps higher, you expect this the Aussie dollar to push up through 75.30 today. Potentially, it's going to find some selling into that level like this. We take out the high, like we did here, flush down. Took out the high, this previous high, flush down. We could do the same thing, take out this high at around 75.40. So if it flushes through straight up from here, straight up and through, just be wary that you're not going to get caught on the long side, and look for that, to get trapped into some longs above that level when they're just looking for liquidity. So it'll be searching for liquidity above that level and then flush straight back down again. That's where I'll be looking for a lower high, okay, off that level. So just to show you what I'm talking about, if we thrust up through there, I'll be looking for sort of, straight move up here. Move up here, maybe something like this, flush through, and then look for a lower high to work off. Okay, into the euro. Now the euro is more susceptible to any US dollar move, and you can see that was about here, 8 o'clock, bang. You can see ramp straight back up, high or low, ramped up to the 11:36. So that was a really, unlike the Aussie, there was an underreaction to the US dollar sell-off. This was overreaction to the US dollar sell-off. Really got ramped higher. So that just goes to show that sort of any shorts in here have been squeezed out on that ramp, and that was pretty much what the market was trying to do. As soon as you started holding, you can see this high low, this zone through here, that's kind of holding. It's different to anything we've seen before. You got lower high in here, lower high in here, market work down, this sort of bounced back up, held this level, and then bang, up we go. Okay, so that whole time it's holding through there, the US dollar was sort of up at a resistance zone. So that's what the market's looking for, up at a resistance zone. As soon as the US dollar sell off, bang, up we go, and we're just flushing out all these stops. Okay, any stops and flushing out all these shorts. Now for me, it's more about whether we hold up here. We might grind higher and then get a lower high. I'll be looking for more, into the start of the European session, maybe something like that, and then bang, maybe as the US dollar finds a bid again. Now pound was a bit of a chop suey sauce. You can see 8 o'clock mark, lifted as the US dollar got sold off, had another lift again, and then straight back down again. So, a bit trading obviously a lot differently to the euro. We've got a zone, and if you're looking at this kind of action, it's just searching for liquidity in there, but it looks like there's a bid. There's a big bid, happy to hold it up above, below that 30.88. And you can see the last time it did that kind of thing, where it went through a level and kept continually flushed into a level and bounced back, flush in, it's started to hold higher lows. So if we start to hold higher lows, we might get another flush down, hold a higher low, and then ramp up. Okay, so you'll be looking for potentially any flush below that 30.88 to be supported, or potentially, and then see if it starts to lift, you can get a higher low to work off, work some longs. US yen. Now, US yen obviously was a sell-off in the US dollar about here. Oh, that was probably a bit late, wasn't it? There was somewhere in here that sank down, and that's been a big move up in the US yen. You can see that big move up US dollar yen as the US dollar got bought up. Now it hits a resistance zone. There was no safe haven in buying into the yen to try to cap that rally. And there's still nothing going on in the end. So it's still, Ukraine, what's happening over there, Ukraine, Russia in talks, peace talks, but that's generally when Russia decides to bomb everything. So I'll be surprised if they don't do the same thing again, but you never know. If that's going to filter through, that's what gave that US dollar a bit of a nudge down, was probably, that talks about what's happening in Ukraine and Russia. And potentially the end to a war. They look like they're going to potentially move out or stop, fighting in Kiev. So that could be the start of something better, which would, would make sense why the US dollar got smacked down again. Any safe haven bid into that would just basically exited stage left. So That's why you've got a bit of a sell-off into the USD. Now, if that continues, expect this market to start to fade a bit more as the US dollar fades. So I'll be looking for potential, a bit of a flush into that 123.23 area, this zone through here, potential flush into there, maybe a lower high off there. See if we can get some shorts off there. Otherwise, it's just be a continued grind back up again. It may just look to, that's kind of the contraction there. We've got price rally, lower highs, high lows holding, so we might still get some contraction. So it sort of makes sense that if it tests up into there, it's going to fail. If not, just be wary it doesn't flush through, hold that level again and rally again. Okay, so gold was a bit of chop suey as well. So it got smacked down, and that was about the same time. Took a hit around the 8 o'clock mark. US dollar got sold off. Yeah, gold also went down. So gold really didn't react to the upside with the US dollar getting sold, which it should do. It's like a currency pair. Selling the US dollar should find support into gold, which it didn't because it's a safe haven as well. And the talks of what's going on with Ukraine and Russia just pressured that market down. It was also, you would expect, below this level here at 1916. I was looking at this, talking to someone earlier, and you can see that kind of grind higher, and you're looking at 1/3 to 2/3 of a move down. So this is the move down. Was it just here? That move down there, you're looking 1/3 to 2/3 retracement. It was just around the 50% mark, a bit below the 50% retracement. Started to find an offer again, meaning sellers coming in. You get a nice little zone through here to trade short off, and that ideally was just looking for a flush. So everything was primed, and you're looking for that flush off this 1916. Now, flush it did, flush through, retested from underneath, so you've even got another shorting opportunity there, and for that move down to 1894, which did react up quite hard and fast. Okay, so that was, to me, and that was the low from previously, back in 17th of this month. Flushed into that level, took out the zone as well. It was really stop hunting below, and then ramped straight back up again. So you'd expect that was the algos driving it down there, just to, as this market starts to head south, it's heading south, just capitulate, obviously gunning for a level, take out those stops, ramp straight back up again. Okay, so from here, it's whether or not we start to hold this 1916 level and grind higher back up and potentially through 1927, or whether we roll over, retest into here, get a lower high, or I ideally would like to see this kind of move here start to get held up at a higher level like that, and then start to look for longs. Crude. Now, crude got knocked in the head also. Okay, once that talk of Ukraine and Russia came through, filtered through the market, got knocked on the head. US inventories, I think, were weaker than expected, but that's expected when you're going to sell at a higher price. You're going to sell as much as you can. Okay, so whether or not they're looking at this market fading off these highs, we're sort of seeing that highs with a big high up here at 124.80, and then a potential, what I'm saying is a confirmed lower high at the moment. That lower high would mean we're going to test back into 93.15, but the way it sort of flushed that 101.75 and bounced back, it could start to hold this level. So if it's going to hold that level, you've got the anchor to the downtrend, or current downtrends around here. What's that? 107.56, and then you're going to get maybe this kind of action. Okay, start to lift, and that's what I'll be looking for. If we start to flush back into there, flush and start to hold that level, hold at a higher level, that's kind of the entry you'd be looking for. Maybe something off that, something like that, a high low to work off, as looking for some longs and looking to break up through the anchor, push back to 111.15 and potentially higher. But at the moment, that move is down, big flush down, it did bounce back, but it doesn't mean that everything's over. The way it bounced back doesn't mean it's over for the downside. Okay, so copper, it's had that good run up. So this is a good strong run up, good shallow pullback, another run up, but it didn't get through those highs convincingly. And again, we've got that lower high, a bit like oil, a potential lower high coming into play. Okay, if that's going to come into play, you'd expect to break through 101.93 and this level to hold 103.65. So we start to fade off this level here, which would make sense. We start to fade off there, we can get that kind of action coming into play and the market to move down. If we start to hold this inside zone through here, then we start to test it there and we hold, then you're sort of looking for maybe more of that move back up again. Okay, just because we got that push through and it will start to fade off there doesn't mean that that's not going to be broken or tested later on. Okay, they're considering that this level here through 101.93 is held. Bitcoin, a couple of cryptos, they went sideways. Essentially, Bitcoin was trapped between 47.100, 48.170. It just basically range bound all session yesterday. Went sideways. So if that's the case, we're looking for a bit of a squeeze on these longs, but you'd want to see, like it's just done this last candle, it's flushed through and bounced back. You don't really want to see that. You want to see more action. You want to see more action on the downside and potentially a good push down, retesting the 47,100, that hold, and then that lower high to work a short into. Okay, Ethereum, really weak sort of a channel. Just marked it up, just got broken. So we could potentially be looking to squeeze. Ethereum's like making a little bit more sense why we could be squeezing. The way it's reacted here, you just could be wary. These currencies, they get played with quite a bit. The cryptos get played with quite a bit. And when the bulls are, the bulls are strong, the forces with them, then they're strong. They kind of, the price action doesn't make as much sense as what you'd think. Okay, so we're looking, that's kind of the anchor to the uptrend. If it just does this kind of action and it doesn't break that anchor, then you're looking for more of a move higher. You could just chop around here, start to do this, and then start to hold and ramp back up again, which would make sense come into the US session because you would expect another rally tonight and potentially tomorrow into the US equity market, which would potentially find some support for Ethereum and your cryptos. So that's it. That's pretty much all I wanted to talk about. Hope you enjoyed that. Now, just leave us a like at YouTube channel. If you haven't subscribed, please do. There's lots of free material on there. I'll be posting a lot more as I start going forward. And join up to or subscribe to the website, www.tradethestructure.com. A lot of free educational material in there. And you can join our community on Discord for more chat about trading and some trade ideas and what we're looking at key levels. So we do a lot of work into Discord, and I'll be starting to build that up a bit more as the community grows. So thanks for joining me, guys, and we'll speak to you tomorrow.